Can you believe your own brother would try to steal everything from you, right after your parents died? I thought my family was just complicated. But what happened next? It was a betrayal so deep, so calculated, it still makes my blood run cold. My name's Sarah, I'm 23, and I used to think I had a pretty normal life. Growing up, things were okay, not perfect but far from broken. We lived in a modest house, nothing fancy, but it was home. My parents worked so hard, and then there was my older brother, Mark. He was the golden child, always at the top of everything, smart, athletic, charming. Everyone adored him. I was just average. It wasn't that we were enemies, but there was always this quiet, simmering tension. Mark got all the praise, all the attention. I guess that's how I learned to be invisible in our family. But then, everything changed. Mom passed away, and it hit us all so hard. Dad, he was absolutely devastated. He just couldn't cope, and his health went downhill fast. It was no surprise when he passed just 6 months after Mom. It was a double blow. But even with both of them gone, I thought one thing would always be constant: our home. It was all we had left. It was the only place I truly felt safe. Then, about 2 months after Dad's funeral, Mark called. We hadn't really talked much since the funerals. We were both still in shock, I guess. But when I picked up, his voice was different. Cold, formal, like he was talking to a stranger. "Sarah," he said, "I need you to come over to the house. We need to talk about something important." I didn't think much of it. I figured it was about handling their affairs, tying up loose ends. But when I arrived, the house felt completely different. Mark was already at the kitchen table, papers scattered in front of him, a grim look on his face. "Sit down," he said, not even looking up. I did, my stomach churning. "What's going on, Mark? What's all this?" He pushed the papers towards me. "This is about the house. The estate. Mom and Dad's will." I froze. The will? It hadn't even crossed my mind. "Look, I've been going over everything, and I've decided what needs to be done with the house," he continued, still not making eye contact. "Wait, what?" I asked, my heart pounding. "What do you mean?" Mark sighed, finally glancing up. "The house, it's going to be mine. I'll take care of all the big stuff. And you? You'll get the smaller things. The heirlooms, a few family keepsakes. Nothing else." I blinked, not believing what I was hearing. "You can't be serious. This house is ours. It belongs to both of us." "No, Sarah," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "It belongs to me. Mom and Dad always made it clear that I was the one they expected to take care of things. I'm the one with the responsibilities. You've never really been involved." I sat there, stunned. The weight of his words sank in. "Are you really going to do this? After everything? After Mom and Dad are gone, you're just going to take everything?" Mark's face hardened. "I'm doing what's right. I'm the one who has the skills, the connections. I'm the one who can manage all of this. You're not built for this, Sarah. You've never been the one to handle things. You should be grateful that I'm letting you stay here for as long as I am." The air between us grew thick with tension. My mouth went dry. "So what? You want me to just leave?" Mark didn't even flinch. "Eventually I'll give you a few months to figure out your life. But you don't really have a place here anymore." My hands started to shake. "Mark, you don't get to just take everything. This house is as much mine as it is yours. I'm not leaving. You can't make me leave." "Oh, I can," Mark said, his voice cold and calculating. "And I will. I'm just giving you time to figure it out. But don't get any ideas, Sarah. I'm in charge now." I stood up, my chest tight with anger. "You can't be serious. You think you can just kick me out of my home after everything that's happened? After Mom and Dad?" "Enough, Sarah." Mark snapped, standing up too. "I'm trying to be generous here, but you're pushing it. You're lucky I'm not taking more." I turned to leave, but not before I threw one last glance over my shoulder. "You'll regret this, Mark." "Whatever," he said, shaking his head. "Just get your stuff together. Don't make this harder than it has to be." I left without another word. As I walked out the door, I felt the weight of everything, the betrayal, the loss, the anger, settle in like a heavy stone in my chest. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I couldn't believe what Mark was doing. He had always been entitled, but this was something else. This was cold, calculated, and I had no idea how far he was willing to go. But I wasn't just going to roll over and let him win. I started making plans. I wasn't going to let Mark get away with this. I began gathering everything I could, documents, evidence, anything that might help me hold my ground. I had no idea what I would do next, but I knew I couldn't just sit back and let him push me out. Then, a week later, things took an even uglier turn. Mark showed up at the house with a few movers, acting like he owned the place. His plan was to start clearing out the house, to pack up everything that he wanted. "Mark, what are you doing?" I demanded, standing in the doorway. He turned to me, his eyes glinting with something dangerous. "You don't get to tell me what to do anymore, Sarah. This is my house now." I couldn't believe it. It felt like my whole life was falling apart, and I was powerless to stop it. "You think you're going to get away with this?" I said, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. Mark smirked. "You're not in a position to stop me. You're just a guest in my house now. Get used to it." The argument with Mark felt like it had just started, but the tension was already unbearable. His smug expression, the way he was throwing his weight around, made me want to scream. I couldn't stand how he was acting like everything Mom and Dad worked for was just his to take. I felt completely powerless, suffocated by his entitled attitude. "Mark, you can't just come in here and do this. You don't even know what you're doing," I shouted, pacing back and forth in the hallway. He rolled his eyes and started grabbing more of my things, tossing them in boxes like they were meaningless. "I'm just doing what needs to be done. I don't know why you're making such a fuss. You should be thankful I'm even letting you stay here. You don't get to tell me what to do. This house is as much mine as it is yours." I snapped, clenching my fists. The anger boiling inside me was starting to cloud my thoughts. Mark's face hardened, and he took a step toward me, almost like he was ready to physically shove me out of the way. "You're not in charge here. I'm trying to be generous, but you're making it difficult." I stepped back, not wanting to escalate things further, but my heart was racing. Every word out of his mouth felt like a slap to my face. I couldn't believe he was acting like this, as if I had no right to anything my parents had worked for, as if I didn't matter. With my heart pounding, I spun around and headed for the stairs, needing some space to think. I couldn't stay in the same room as him any longer without losing it. I was about to lose control. I made my way up to the second floor, avoiding the movers who were still rummaging through the rooms, taking things that weren't theirs to take. I needed to get away, to cool off, to just breathe. The door to my parents' room stood ajar, and I hesitated for a moment. This room hadn't been touched since they passed away. It felt sacred. But I was desperate to escape Mark's presence and needed some solitude, so I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was just as it had been when Mom and Dad were alive. Quiet, serene, like nothing had changed. Their bed still had the same comforter, and their dresser had the same framed photos on it. It was almost like they were still there. But I couldn't stand being surrounded by memories anymore. I walked to the window, staring outside at the garden below, trying to gather my thoughts. I had to figure out what to do next, because I wasn't about to let Mark win. I needed a plan. Something that would give me leverage. Then, my eyes caught a glimpse of something sticking out from under the drawer of the nightstand next to Mom's side of the bed. Curiosity got the best of me, and I pulled the drawer open, expecting it to be a piece of old paperwork or maybe one of Mom's keepsakes. But instead, There was an envelope, sealed, with my parents' names written on it in bold, messy handwriting. I felt a chill run down my spine. I had never seen this envelope before. What could it be? Without even thinking, I carefully opened it, my fingers trembling. Inside was a folded piece of paper, and as I unfolded it, my heart stopped. It was the will. But not just any will. This was the real will. The one Mark had clearly never shown me. The one he had probably hidden all this time. My parents had left everything to me. Not just the family heirlooms. Not just a few keepsakes. The house was mine. Everything was mine. I sat down on the bed, stunned, my heart racing. This had to be some sort of mistake. Maybe it wasn't the final will. But no, it was signed and dated, with both my parents' signatures at the bottom. And it didn't mention Mark at all. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. How could Mark have done this to me? How could he have lied to my face like that? He had tried to push me out of the house, to take everything for himself. All this time I thought I was at his mercy. But in reality, the power had been in my hands all along. But I couldn't just sit on this information. I needed advice. I needed to make sure I handled this properly. So, without wasting another second, I grabbed my phone and called a lawyer. I'd never dealt with anything like this before, so I wasn't sure where to start. I needed someone who could help me navigate this mess. After a few rings, the line connected. "Hello, this is Richard Parks. How can I help you today?" I took a deep breath, my mind racing. "Hi, I need legal help. I found something. Something important. My parents, well, they passed away a few months ago, and my brother has been taking control of everything. But I just found a will that changes everything." Richard didn't say anything right away. "Hey, Sarah, slow down. Let's take this one step at a time. What exactly did you find?" I explained everything to him. The will, the fact that it left the house to me, and how Mark had been acting like he owned everything. Richard was quiet for a moment, processing what I had said. "You've got something serious here, Sarah. If what you're saying is true, this could change a lot of things. But I need to see that will. If it's legitimate, we can use it to put Mark in his place." My hands shook as I held up the will. "I'll bring it to you. But I need to know, what should I do next? Should I confront Mark?" "That depends," Richard said carefully. "Do you want to handle this peacefully, or are you ready for a legal battle? Mark will likely fight you on this, especially if he's been living there and acting like he's in charge. You need to be prepared." I took a deep breath. I wasn't sure what I wanted. I didn't want to tear my family apart, but I also couldn't let Mark continue to walk all over me. The anger that had built up over the last few days was bubbling over, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could hold back. "I'm not sure what I want, but I need to make sure I'm doing the right thing," I said, my voice shaking. "We'll take it step by step, Sarah. But whatever you decide, you've got the law on your side. And you don't have to back down." As I hung up the phone, I realized something. This wasn't over. In fact, it had only just begun. The battle for the house was far from finished, and I was about to find out just how far Mark would go to keep what he thought was his. The next morning, I sat in the lawyer's office, gripping the will so tightly that my fingers had started to cramp. The room was quiet, except for the faint hum of the air conditioning, and Richard Parks, my lawyer, skimmed through the document with intense focus. His office smelled of old books and fresh paper, and the walls were lined with certificates and law books. Finally, Richard exhaled and looked up. "Sarah, this document is clear as day. Your parents left the house entirely to you. Your brother is not mentioned at all." The words sank into me like a weight. Even though I had already read the will myself, hearing it from a legal expert made it feel real. I swallowed. "So, legally I own the house?" Richard nodded. "Yes. Mark has no rightful claim to it. If this is the most recent version, and from what I can see, it is, then he has no case." What a sharp contrast to the way Mark had been acting ever since our parents passed. He'd waltzed in like a king returning to his castle, dictating what would happen to my home, treating me like an unwanted guest in the very place I grew up. And now? Now I had proof that the castle was mine. But Mark wasn't just going to accept this. He never did. Richard leaned forward, his voice firm but calm. The next step is confronting him. We need to do this properly. Call him. Tell him to come here. I'll be the one to present the will to him so there's no debate, no accusations of forgery. Once he sees this, we'll see how he reacts. I hesitated. I could already picture it. Mark's face turning red, his voice rising, his rage at realizing he wasn't the one in control. But this had to happen. I pulled out my phone, my hands only slightly trembling as I scrolled to Mark's number. Press call. 2 rings. What do you want? Mark's voice was impatient, like I was some inconvenience to him. I took a breath. Come to Richard Park's office now. It's urgent. There was a pause, then a scoff. I don't have time for whatever pity party you're throwing. It's about the will, I said, my voice steady. You're going to want to hear this. Silence. I could almost hear him processing those words. Then finally, fine, he snapped. I'll be there in 20. I hung up without another word. Richard gave me a reassuring nod. Let's see how he takes the truth. 20 minutes later, Mark stormed into the office like he owned the place, shoulders squared, expression set in stone. But he wasn't alone. Lisa, his wife, followed closely behind, her lips twisted in that familiar smirk she always wore when she thought she had the upper hand. Lisa crossed her arms. This better be important. I ignored her and turned to Mark. Sit down. Mark raised an eyebrow, then looked over at Richard. His smirk faltered slightly. Who is this? Richard remained calm, gesturing to the empty seat across from him. Mr. Dawson, please sit. Mark didn't move right away. He was sizing up the situation, trying to figure out why I had called him here. Eventually he sat, though his posture was tense. Richard slid the will across the desk. I suggest you read this carefully. Mark snatched the paper up, his eyes skimming over the words at first, then slowing. His grip on the document tightened. His face changed. His usual smugness vanished. Lisa leaned over his shoulder, frowning. What does it say? Mark didn't answer. His jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Richard folded his hands on the desk. Your parents left the house to Sarah. She is the sole legal owner. As of now, you have no rightful claim to it. Mark slammed the paper onto the desk. This is bull. He cut himself off, his nostrils flaring. No, this isn't right. They told me I would get everything. Lisa snatched up the will, scanning it quickly before her face twisted in disbelief. This doesn't make any sense. There must be another will, one where Mark gets the house. I crossed my arms. Then feel free to find it. But this is the legally binding document. Mark was breathing hard now, his fingers curling into fists. This is fake. Richard stayed perfectly composed. It's not. This was signed and notarized. Your parents' legal representatives would confirm the same. Mark shot up from his chair, knocking it backward. You think you can just steal this from me? His voice was low, dangerous. Lisa was shaking her head furiously. We'll fight this. We'll contest it. Richard sighed. You can certainly try, but I'll warn you, contesting a legally valid will is expensive, time-consuming, and almost never successful. Mark's eyes snapped to me, and for the first time, I saw something underneath his anger, panic. For months he had acted like this house was already his, like I was just some obstacle to get rid of. But now he realized he was the obstacle. His voice dropped to a growl. You think this is over? I met his gaze, unwavering. No, Mark. I think it's just getting started. Mark's face was red with fury, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles were turning white. Lisa was gripping his arm, whispering something, probably trying to calm him down, or more likely, strategizing their next move. But no matter how much they schemed, they couldn't change the facts. The house was mine. Still, Mark wasn't the kind of person to accept defeat gracefully. "This isn't over," he spat, his voice barely above a growl. Richard remained unfazed. "Legally it is. But if you'd like to spend thousands of dollars trying to contest a valid will, be my guest. I'm confident any judge will side with Sarah." Mark glared at me like I had personally stolen something from him, like I was the one being unfair. This was supposed to be my house. I exhaled slowly, my patience running on fumes. "You keep saying that, Mark, but why? What made you think you were entitled to it?" He scoffed. "Because I'm the man of the family. Because Mom and Dad told me I would take care of things when they were gone. Because it's what makes sense." I shook my head, more disappointed than anything. "No, Mark. What makes sense is that they left the house to the person who actually lived there, who took care of them when they got sick, who didn't show up only when it was convenient." Mark let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, come on. You were just their charity case. They didn't want to hurt your feelings." Lisa nodded eagerly. "That's right. Maybe they wrote this will before they realized you wouldn't be able to handle a house on your own." I turned to Richard. "There's no older will, right?" Richard shook his head. "None that hold any legal standing. This is the most recent, signed, notarized, and properly filed. Your parents were clear in their wishes." Mark's expression darkened. "This is a setup. You must have found some way to trick them into signing it." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Are you serious? You think I manipulated them into leaving me the house? Unlike you, I never asked them for a single thing." Lisa crossed her arms. "Well, what are you going to do now, huh? Kick us out? Throw out your own family?" And there it was. The guilt trip. The same tactic they had been using since day one. I didn't flinch. "Mark, Lisa, you have 1 week to pack up and leave." Mark's eyes widened. "You can't be serious." I nodded. "Oh, I'm very serious. I let you walk all over me because I thought that's what family did. We supported each other. But you tried to steal from me, humiliate me, and erase me from my own home. I owe you nothing." Lisa scoffed. "This is unbelievable." Mark slammed his fists on the desk. "You're going to regret this." Richard, ever the professional, folded his hands. "I'd advise you to be careful with your words, Mr. Dawson. Threats don't look good in legal disputes." Mark stormed out, Lisa trailing behind him, still muttering under her breath. I let out a shaky breath. It was over. I had won. Mark and Lisa dragged out the move until the last possible day, but I had the law on my side. With an official eviction notice and a firm deadline, they had no choice but to leave. They didn't go quietly. Mark ranted on social media about how I had betrayed my family, painting himself as the victim. Lisa made petty remarks every chance she got. But in the end it didn't matter. The house was mine, just like my parents wanted. And as I sat in the quiet, in the home I had fought so hard to keep, I finally felt at peace. Sometimes, standing up for yourself means losing people you thought were family, but gaining something far more precious: your own peace and the truth.